Hey everybody, and welcome to another Industry Night with me, Nycci Nellis, the show that takes you on a deep dive of the happenings in the hospitality community. Now, if you're new here, hi, thanks for joining me, and if you're old here, just hang out for a couple seconds while I give people the whole roll of the show. So, I'm Nycci Nellis. I've been covering the DC food, wine, and hospitality scene for the last 20 years. I know, I don't look that old, but I am. And you can find me at thelistareyouwantit.com, the online e-zine that tells you everything that is happening in and around the DC metro area. Of course, you follow me at NYCCINELLIS, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Threads, LinkedIn, and now on YouTube, because this show, Industry Night, is on YouTube and, of course, on all your podcast platforms. And lastly, you also check me out on Foodie and the Beast, the show that's been on air for 15 years now. It is my husband and I am the foodie, He's the beast. Anyway, so we've been showing that show for 15 years. It is still DC's only food and wine variety show. So that's a bit about me and a little bit about Industry Night. This is a deep dive show, and I get to do the really, the coolest things, like today. So I'm gonna get into it. So over the past few years, if you follow me and you know what I do, I've had the pleasure of emceeing the Events DC Embassy Chef Challenge. And it's always this knockout gala event. People get all dressed up. But the coolest part about it is that all these embassies participate and their chefs come and they decorate the tables and they bring all their culture and they bring amazing cuisine. And then there's a bit of a competition because it's all judged. But it is an incredible exchange of culture and cuisine that could happen only here in DC. So it's coming up again. I'm very excited about it. First of all, I've been asked to MC again, which I'm very excited about. But last time I did it, not only did I get to MC, I got to go to all these embassies and sit with the chefs and cook with them and talk to the attachés or the ambassadors or the ambassadors' family, just about their cultures, their cuisines, and then what it means to not just diplomatically do that here in this country, but also in DC. So we've got two things happening, and I just love it. So the competition is back. The chefs take it seriously. It's happening on March 7th, and that leads me to where I am, because I am in the Cuban embassy. When I got the call that that's where we were doing the show today, I have to be honest, I did a little dance. I was so excited because I've heard about how glorious this embassy is, and it does not disappoint. And listen, we all know that there was some diplomatic issues over the years with our countries, but that has changed since 2015, and now the embassy is open, and if they don't let just anybody in, fair warning, but there are some beautiful things here. And I think what's so important about me being here today is that maintaining diplomatic relations is important. And this is a way that we all get to do that. So you get to join me. So before I get into it, I'm delighted first to reestablish one of my relations with Jinhee Kim. She is the creative officer for Events DC. We're going to get into Events DC, what they do, why they do all these amazing things that incorporate what's going on in the city. And then David Ramirez is joining me. He's the cultural attaché for the Embassy of Cuba. I think I was supposed to say something else, though. I was supposed to say the Embassy of the Republic of Cuba. But he said I could say both. But I'm so excited to have him here because he and I have been chatting for a while this afternoon, and he is just a wealth of information. But before I get into you, normally at this part of the show, I take you on a little tour of where I've been and what I've been eating. But I don't want to waste too much time, so I'm just going to quickly read off some of the places, because I know it's only been a week since we've been together, but your girl's been out and about. Okay, so I went to the new Le Bon Vache in Georgetown. The cutest little French bistro. So great. Get online because you're going to need to. Aventino, Mikey Friedman's new place in Bethesda, just opened. Roman, his version of Roman Italian cuisine. So delish. You better get a res because I already heard Feb is booked. Okay. Cork celebrated their Sweet 16. Yay, Diane and Khaled. That's a huge milestone for any restaurant, especially in this city. Gravitas and Capo did a collab dinner. I was there. I ate it all. It was worth it. And It was the Emperor's birthday of Japan earlier this week, and I was invited to the Japanese embassy to celebrate that. And I just figured that was a perfect segue because, see, I was at the Japanese embassy, and now, hi, David, I'm here at the Cuban embassy. It's so nice to see you, and thank you so much for hosting me today.
Thank you so much for coming, and looking forward to talking to you about anything.
Don't worry, I'm going to take it easy on you, I promise. So I'd love to start. We talked so much about Cubans, the Cuban history and the culture, but I'd love to give people a little context. Can you tell us a little bit about Cuba and the rich history there, because there's so many influences?
Yeah. Okay, so it's a very beautiful history. Mm-hmm. It has a lot to do with the U.S. We share a lot of roots between Cuba and the U.S. Mm-hmm. Mainly, we were both countries that had different colonial empires that developed their economies mm-hmm. in our nations, and obviously that developed the way that we, have our own cultures and our own culinary, mm-hmm. Ways of being, right? And this is one of the most key aspects. I would say that most importantly, what Cuba has that is most unique is the fact that we have a mixture of the roots from our African ancestors and mm-hmm. also from our European ancestors. So we used to be a Spanish colony, so we have a lot from our Spanish ancestors and also from Africa. So we like to call ourselves an ajiaco, right? Culturally, we're an ajiaco. Ajiaco is like what you in the US call a melting pot. Mm-hmm. So ajiaco is actually a dish in Cuba where you put a lot of vegetables, meat together in a big bowl, and everybody in a family, eats it and has a great time. So mm-hmm. that's our culture and our people. So
do you say that a lot of the architecture in Cuba, a lot of the music in Cuba, and obviously some of the food in Cuba is all a melting pot of those cultures even today?
Yeah, exactly. Totally agreeing with you. Mm-hmm. Right now, Cuba is you would say, is a hot spot for culture. Everything that has to do with dance, everything that has to do with music. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have UNESCO heritage sites and also intangible heritage things like, for example, danzón, mm-hmm. which is a national music, has been one of the most important parts of our history, and it's like the root of what today you call salsa, mm-hmm. son, timba. So we have more folkloric sorts of music and dance like guaguancó, rumba, conga. So it's a beautiful hotspot for dancing and having a great time.
Right.
Obviously, the fact that the weather is obviously wonderful all mm-hmm. year round.
It's beautiful, right?
And yeah, a lot of beaches, beautiful beaches. And
yeah, I feel like we need to I love being here in the embassy. I really appreciate the invitation to be here, but I do feel like that maybe if we did this in Cuba, we would understand more what you were talking about.
You're definitely invited to Cuba.
I'm going to take you up on that invitation. So let's talk about the embassy here. Yeah. It was not open for quite some time. I told you off air that my husband's father used to go to Cuba in the 40s and 50s. Yeah. There was a huge tourism between the United States and Cuba for many years until it was not. So now that the embassy is reopened and you are here in this country, what does that mean for Cuba? And how do you share not just yourself diplomatically, but your culture and your cuisine with this country?
Yeah, you are definitely right in this. For us, it's paramount to be here, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that we have an open embassy, that the United States citizens, even though you have your restrictions imposed by your own government to mm-hmm. travel to Cuba, you can still travel to Cuba and get to see our country. A lot has changed, and right now what our most important objective here in the United States is to work for more engagement, for more diplomatic ties, mm-hmm. and what a better way than to work for that using culture and using cultural bridges, and more than that, using food to get into your hearts. Mm-hmm. And Cuban people, you might not know Cuban people, or maybe you do.
I do now.
we are very welcoming. We are very passionate in what we do, and we when you get to know us, you become family. So that's what we want to do here in the United States: become closer friends.
Okay, I'm here for that. Can we talk about, since now we're really good friends, can we talk about some of the cuisine? Like, what did your mom make for you growing up? What did you grow up eating that makes you think of home, makes you think of Cuba, or when you invite me to your house, what are you going to make for me?
Okay, that's a very good question. So in Cuba, sugar is a very big deal, right? So most of our food, even the entrees, some other way, in one other way, they have sugar in them.
Oh.
So when you're asking me what would my mom make me, that's a very good question. I would like, for dessert, I would like to have flan. Do you know flan?
Of course.
So flan in Cuba is a very big deal. They also make it with coconut, which gives it a very interesting flavor. But we also have something which is called coquitos, which are like small cakes of sugar and coconut, which is very nice.
Yum.
But we also have arroz con leche, which is rice with milk and cinnamon. That is very Cuban. And when we talk about entrees, I'm thinking ropa vieja. I'm thinking congri.
That's like the pulled beef, right?
Yeah,
it's like the rope.
exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
That's very endemic to our country. It's a big deal there, and we love it. Obviously, congri, which would be white rice made with black beans, make it a very nice combination. And obviously, we were talking about plantains.
Right.
Plantains is a very big deal in Cuba. We make tostones and fried ripe plantain. So yeah, that's Cuba.
Okay, well, I love all the Cuban cuisine. Do you think people in this country have a good understanding of Cuban cuisine and culture? Do you think that we misunderstand a lot here?
I think that there is a lot of knowledge about Cuban culture as a whole, but there's like empty spots in this knowledge, and there is much that the American society can learn about our country, and obviously invite you guys to go to Cuba whenever you want.
You keep saying that.
To learn about Cuba from your own eyes.
I know, I feel like we're going. So just quickly, before I go over to Jinhee, I am going to come back to you. Can we talk about this building? Because it's so gorgeous. And I'm sure so many people who if you live in the DC area, you drive by this building on 16th Street all the time and you're always like, what's in there? Because it's so pretty. Can you talk to me a little bit about the architecture, the room we're in, the artwork?
All right, so the building, as we were talking before, this building was built more than a century ago. It was built by the Cuban authorities back then, and it has always been the Cuban embassy, or it has always been used for this purpose. Initially, it was also the residence of the ambassador. For different diplomatic reasons, it was closed down and used as an interest section, but with Cuban officials inside. So it has always belonged to our country, and if you look around, you will see our country being reflected in the walls, in the roof, in the ceiling, even in the porch. Our coat of arms are around the building everywhere. And yes, architecturally, it has a neoclassical style, and also it has a little bit of eclectic, which is resembling the architecture of our country at the beginning of the 20th century. This building, you could put it in the center of Havana, it would be like, part of the scenery.
Isn't that amazing?
So yeah, it is. Also, we have a beautiful stained glass roof, which has images of our flag, of our national symbols.
It's a beautiful building. We haven't discussed the Hemingway Bar, and we haven't discussed daiquiris or rum. I mean, we have a whole bunch to get to, but I'm going to go over here to Jinhee. I'll go to my pod,
sure.
And I want to get to you. So I'd love to talk about you, Jinhee, Kim. So
I want
nice.
to talk about the colors in here because I have a ex-boyfriend who's from Havana.
Okay.
And he brought me this beautiful picture, and the colors are very vibrant. The Cuba Libre, it's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like you didn't get the memo of where we were and how we were doing it, but
I know.
it's okay. You stand out. So let's talk about Events DC. I know who and what Events DC is, and I mean the name Events DC is emblazoned all around the city for a variety of events and functions and partnerships. But I don't know if everybody knows what Events DC is and what you do. Can you explain it?
Yes, absolutely. It was funny because when Events DC came to me, I used to be a head of program in Apple, and the then CEO said, "We'd like you to come and open this new division called Creative Services, and would you be willing to meet with the CEO?" And I said, "What is Events DC?" I had no idea what Events DC was. But essentially, I like to say we drive tourism and activities and events. And we're sort of the soul in terms of activities here in Washington, D.C. We draw together, we're the Sports Commission, we're the Convention Center, we're also landlords, we manage a lot of real estate, Nats Park and other places. So we're kind of at the center of all things that happen in Washington, D.C. We help consolidate efforts, we help facilitate, when big concerts come in or big festivals, we help them run through permitting and so forth, but we also help cultivate and partnerships and also curate programming. So I was brought on to really start to originate live events that we owned and we created on our own. And one of the things that we really wanted to do was expand this Embassy Chef Challenge because...
So it was here first. It's been around for quite some time.
I believe it's in its 15th year this year. Yes. So it's been around. And last year, we meaning Creative Services, kind of started managing it, and we brought it from the Ronald Reagan building where it was there for years. We brought it to the Smithsonian American Art Museum, and I think that it just added a whole new flavor, a whole new dimension. We had a center stage that you were MC for, and I just have to say we're so grateful you're coming back.
I'm so grateful to be asked.
Yes, and I think that the ambassadors and cultural, attachés and people and guests were very, very happy with because it really added sort of this very exquisite experience because it is truly a uniquely DC event because something that's really important, I think, to us, and particularly personally, being a first-generation immigrant, is to celebrate the international community that is here in Washington, D.C. There's nowhere else, no other city except, I think, Beijing that has as many embassies in one area. We have, I think, over 175.
Isn't that amazing?
So when you think about that, it's a uniquely DC experience. We have a thriving international community that intersects with the national and the local communities here. And we really just wanted to make sure we did that right, and we did right by the international community.
But I think it's so important to bring the international community and the local community together. I mean, to not bring them together, to keep them separate, is such a waste of cultural exchange.
Oh, absolutely. And there's already intersections of that. I used to be the acting director of the Asian Pacific American Center at Smithsonian. And we found that there were lots of intersections of Korean and Mexican and Guatemalan and Parisian. They were in French and Italian. They were all intersecting naturally and organically. We just needed to get that message out to the general public. And I think that's what we're doing at the Embassy Chef Challenge.
So let's talk about the Embassy Chef Challenge and how it's being executed this year. In previous years, I mean, it is about the food, it is about the competition. There's a lot going on there, but there's also music acts and dance acts. Like, there's so much pride in the room. I think that's why the room feels so good, because people are so excited to wear their traditional dress, decorate their tables in traditional ways, or get up there and do a traditional dance or sing a song. And I just think that vibe just sort of reverberates, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that Events DC, we pride ourselves in doing, is that we give this, we have a fairly large platform, the brand of Events DC, and we're embedded in with the city, and we're embedded in with private sector. And if we can give that platform to embassies, big and small, and help amplify the messaging that you all want to get out there. And it's really done through shared experience. It's not transactional. I'm going to just stand here and tell you about it. It's actually an immersive experience. And so as you saw, the center stage, I don't know if you came last year, but if you visited, but the center stage, people were milling about and they were eating their food and they're watching, and there's cultural performances and dancing and singing, and that's a way to message who you are and what your culture is, and how best to do that for people to actually experience that.
Well, also, in a room where you're standing next to all sorts of people. Absolutely. When you think about all the division in the world, and there's everybody in one room, breaking bread, seriously. Right. And I just think that it's such a beautiful moment for everybody to come together and do it. So, what is your priority when you think about the exchange of culture and cuisine at the Embassy Chef Challenge? Like, what is the priority to you, and what are your hopes and dreams?
Yeah, I mean, at the foundation of it, it's a universal language, food. And then when you go, when you kind of parse that out, it's culinary diplomacy. It's what the embassies are really practicing, right? And when you think about food, and maybe you could say this for art and music as well, but it is a language that doesn't need translation. And I think what we want to show is that there aren't boundaries around food. I mean, everybody has a preferred taste, but for us, we really want to showcase the beauty of the mixture, as you call it, a melting pot in Havana. I think that people don't, until you come to Washington, D.C., oftentimes people think, there's sort of the National Mall, there's politics, and then that's it.
Right. But that makes me really angry.
I know, right? But right over here are the embassies. Right over here is a thriving international community that's intersecting with the national, that's intersecting with the local. And we want to make sure that we showcase the international community in DC for its true soul. I mean, the soul of DC is the intersection of these beautiful communities coming together. And it really is, there's very little translation that has to happen there. And I think even in a little modicum of chance, if we can show that there is really no translation needed here, maybe there's very little translation that's needed here, and to build on that. And I think that the embassies and everyone that we meet, through this Embassy Chef Challenge and the International City Food Festival, at their core, they want to be able to message that they are a part of a broader humanity. And I think that just comes across in a very beautiful way through food.
Well, I agree with you. No, I mean, I agree with you. And I mean, I think even as we sit here with David, and he's like, you need to come to Cuba. When I met with the other embassies and talked with their chefs or attaches or ambassadors, it was, well, you need to come to my country. You need to come here so you can understand why I love it so much. It's so personal. Yeah, it is. And I really, it makes me I do want that. When he's like, come to Cuba, I'm like, sign me up. Like I have my passport in my bag. I am ready to travel at any point in time. My kids are all grown. I can go anywhere. So let's talk a little bit about Cuba participating this year, because it's the very first time. It is. So why did you guys decide to join in this year?
Well, as I was explaining before, when we talked before, actually we had no idea about this event, and we found out through an association that works with us of cultural attaches that they were talking to us about their experiences in previous years. And when we started looking up, we said, oh my God, why haven't we participated?
So what made you guys decide to participate in the Embassy Chef Challenge this year?
So Events DC is a very big, interesting organization. We heard from our associates from a Cultural Attaches Association that we have from Latin American countries that had participated before, and we thought it would be amazing if we started participating now. I mean, we can't imagine why we didn't before. So yeah, we're here.
Okay, so now, since I've done this multiple times, I will tell you, I mean, people bring it with the food, but they also really bring it with the drinks.
Yeah.
I didn't mention all the drinks, like lots of drinks. So if you like to drink, there's a lot of it there. So I know rum is the mainstay of Cuban cocktails.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the product, the sugar cane, the production there, the history behind it?
Okay, so as you said, rum has a lot of connection to our country and to our history. Cuba used to be a very big sugarcane plantation nation, where most of the sugar around the world was produced in our country. With other competitors, but it was like one of the most important sources of income of our nation for many centuries up until some decades ago. So it was a very big deal, and it's still a very big deal. So sugar, rum are like Cuba, and sugar and rum are one. And rum is also the base for most of the cocktails that we produce in our country that are worldwide famous, like mojitos, like daiquiris, like canchanchara, which is a more typical sort of a cocktail from the center part of the country.
But let's just remind people that daiquiris are not the like crushed ice, slushy, gross things that you get. Those are not daiquiris. I don't even know why they're called daiquiris, but they're not. Can you explain what's in a daiquiri? Like, because a daiquiri is really clean. It's a very clean drink.
Yeah, the daiquiri. Well, actually, Ernest Hemingway was a big fan of daiquiris. He used to drink daiquiris in a place called Floridita in Old Havana, near to the hotel where he used to live in Cuba. And he was a big fan. And the daiquiri mainly is based on white rum, but sometimes you can use a little bit dark rum. You can use crushed ice, but very well, with a small dash of crushed ice on the top. You add a little bit of sparkling water if you want. You add a little bit of lemon, and that's it.
That's it.
Not
Super
more,
clean.
Not more.
No, it really lets the rum
the
show,
rum,
right?
Yeah, and it's actually served on a round, small cup. It's not served on a big glass and a long glass.
American size.
I know,
Yeah.
right? American size,
So,
exactly.
it's more of like a small thing to drink and to cherish with family, mainly. Yeah.
So when you guys come, like, what are you hoping that the chefs make for the Embassy Chef Challenge? Like, now that you know that like people really bring it, what are you hoping that they're making?
Okay, so that's a very tough question because we want to make a very big surprise. We want to make surprises.
We won't tell anybody, I promise.
So yeah, but maybe I'm thinking about ropa vieja, but I'm also thinking about mojitos, but I'm also thinking about arroz con leche. Who knows? Who knows what might happen?
Okay, so you're not going to tell us anything is what I'm getting from you.
Mainly.
But you guys are participating with Events DC in other capacities too, right? You're sharing music. You were telling me earlier that you do some work with local schools. Can we get into that a bit?
Yeah. Right now we're partnering with the Embassy Adoption Program, which has a lot to do with public schools in DC, and it's been a wonderful experience. And with Events DC, actually there was a group from Events DC that visited our country because we just had a very big international event which is called Havana Jazz Plaza, and we had a go-go band playing for the first time in Cuba, which was, I understand, sponsored by Events DC. And
we could have gone to Cuba.
My filmmaker went. We should have gone with
Yes,
him.
okay, now we know.
So I understand that it was a total success, a total hit, and we're looking forward to continuing this program.
I
for sure.
bet. God, that just sounds amazing. Well, Jinhee, on that note, let's talk about, other than the Embassy Chef Challenge, it's only an event in all the things that are happening. I have like lists here. I mean, you have this Passport DC, the European Open House. You have all these activations happening. Can we go through it a little bit? Because it is amazing, sort of the breadth and depth of offerings and ways for people to engage with the embassies here.
Absolutely. I think that we discovered that you can't just do one event. And so we're really looking at the month of May as branding that as an international month. And so we're kicking it off May 3rd, beginning for 3 days of a festival called International City Food Festival. And that will be, we're doing activations around International Square. We're working with different embassies. Last year we did Oktoberfest, and we work with the Mexican embassy as well for their Day of the Dead. And then the first Saturday of every May is Around the World Embassy Tour. I can't remember if Cuba opens, but I think we
it's
had...
complicated.
It is complicated, right?
Absolutely. I think we have over 60 embassies that open their doors, and we see tens of thousands of people. We know people who come across the country for that, because again, DC is the only place that has these embassies, and they can actually tour.
So they tour the embassies. Are they given like they're just not walking around by themselves? Like they're given personal tour or tour guides, and
There's
they
a
learn
tour
about the
guide.
history
That's
and
right.
everything.
That's
Okay.
right. So it's I think they open at 10 and then go to around 4 or 5, maybe 6, and you'll see lines just lined up out there. And last year, actually, we were in front of the UK because it was King Charles's birthday, I believe. Coronation.
Oh, the coronation. Oh my God, what timing?
Yes, what timing. They had this huge cake, and they were giving out the king's cake. And
Oh.
I mean, where else can you experience that?
Only in
here.
DC.
Only
It's only in DC.
And then we have the European Union that does an open house, and we will have a number of different activations. We have cultural heritage walks around the city. So again, it's
Well, tell me a
amplifying.
little bit about that. Tell me about these cultural walks, because those are very appealing to me.
Yes.
But I don't know if people, like, I feel like people are like, oh, there's nothing to do this weekend.
I know.
You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
I have nothing to do. But there's all these ways, there's so many things to do.
So
Can we
many
talk
things
about
to
that a
do.
little bit?
There are these cultural heritage walks that happen in all 8 wards, and there are at least 25 of them happening at any given time throughout the month. And it is an opportunity, and you go with really kind of a heritage curator, and you go through and you understand and get to know what the city is all about. And again, it brings in the international community, our national identity.
He's like, oh, okay.
Identity.
Right,
David,
Let's
David?
go.
you can come
Let's
with
do
us.
it.
And it is something that is, again, very unique to DC. It is curated by locals, and it gives you a rich history of what began, a lot of movements that began here in Washington, D.C., and that kind of spanned across the country. And it's a unique month for DC.
It is. So mark your calendars for the month of May.
That's right.
Because there's all these activations happening.
That's right.
Of course, you can find it on the list, areyoonit.com. But there's so many different things, and you'll keep us posted about
right.
all of it. And then let's get back to the Embassy Chef Challenge for just a second. Let's tell everybody where it is, when it is, and what you're most looking forward to.
Union Station, March 7th.
Oh, so right, we're in a new place.
That's right, a new place.
Woo!
We're activating a very large section of Union Station.
Okay.
It starts at 6 p.m. Tickets are on sale now, emceeing.com. And I am actually looking forward to David's mojito.
We expect you to come with a shaker,
Yeah.
David.
That's
You're creating a commitment here.
Very, very much looking forward to
Okay,
Cuba
great.
being there.
And I do want people to know that it fills up. Last year, you guys sold out.
We sold out within hours.
Yes.
Yes.
So
we have put the price point at a place that is really accessible, and we hope that people will come and really experience.
okay, I feel like you're making me ask, what's the price point?
$150.
And that is completely reasonable because there's well over 20 embassies there, and there's so much food, and there's so much drink, and so much music
That's right.
and entertainment.
That's right.
It's a full evening experience,
Full
and you
evening.
do not leave hungry.
You don't leave hungry, and I heard so many times people stopping me and saying, "I've never visited so many countries in one evening." And
Right.
it really is. You are actually visiting with the country.
It's very true. And I feel very grateful not only to, again, be able to chat with you and talk about all that Events DC does, because it's pretty exciting for our city to have somebody who's so focused on engaging all the different parts of it, and also to be invited into your house today of the Cuban Embassy. If you could just share just a couple messages with people, like what you would really like them to know either about Cuba or your being here in the States, tell us.
All right, that's a very good question. I don't know how to start. Just by
Well, the
saying
show's
that-
almost over, so
Yeah.
but go ahead.
So yeah, I must say that you're all welcome to Cuba. Cuba is a very welcoming place. As we discussed before, when you become a friend of Cuba, you become a friend and become family. And for us, having you here, hosting you has been a privilege and an honor, and we would love to continue developing relationship with you, with Events DC. And again, we're here to create bonds, ties, cultural bridges, do a lot of diplomacy, and hopefully one day become better friends. So,
I
yeah.
love that. Well, on that note, that's a great way to end it. I want to thank you both for taking your time to have me join me today, and obviously to have me back with Events DC for the Embassy Chef Challenge, and for you two and your team to open up the doors for us to see this beautiful home. We did not talk about the bar,
The Hemingway Bar.
the Hemingway Bar, but I'm going to have photos of it, so you can check that out. I want to thank all of you for joining me here today. Nycci Nellis, Industry Night. Follow me at NYCCI NELLIS on all the platforms. Don't forget, if you're listening to this show, you can also watch it on YouTube and see all the things we're talking about. So much is happening, and you'll miss it if you just sit on your couch. So get out there, enjoy, and have a delicious week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.